Hello everyone, this is my last video for the semester. It's entitled Critical Thinking Short Video 3, and I wanted to share this with my viewing audience as I post it for my final assignment for the semester. And in this video, we are going to talk about Neil Postman, who is the author of Amusing Ourselves to Death. And this author argues that television as a medium of entertainment is incapable of encouraging sustained reflection on matters of fundamental importance. And then he applies that the argument to the realms of religion, politics, and education, while finally using the insights of Aldous Huxley, who was an English writer and philosophy, to issue a warning to the American society. I think that this is a very important topic because as we see that he applied his theory to the arguments in the realms of religion, politics, and education, we're going to focus on the area of religion. Do I agree with Postman's convictions concerning the use of television in the realm of religion or education for that matter? But again, we're going to stick to religion. And of course, this book had a focus on television, I believe, because of the time frame that it was written in. But we also know that now we are dealing with social media and going across the internet to project things pertaining to religion and spirituality. And when he said that television, and we will again equate that to using social media as well, is incapable of encouraging sustained reflection on matters of fundamental importance, I don't totally agree with that because as long as the person who is delivering the message of the gospel, who is giving the teaching that is referencing religion, religious doctrines, if they stick with biblical content and make sure that they stay away from their opinion and stick with credible sources to expound on things that are written in the Bible, I do believe that television and other social media outlets are capable of encouraging sustained reflection on matters of fundamental importance. But that sustenance is going to have to come with making sure that the message is consistent and that it continues to flow right along with all of the other messages that are there. Because it is necessary to use the medium of television, to use the medium of social media to be able to have a platform to bring truth to light, because there is going to be erroneous information that is going to be given. There is going to be opinions and information from groups that want to sway people to adopt their certain perspective. So, as Christians, as believers, we will have to make sure that we are actively engaging, not just in the pulpit, but across the airwaves, however that may go, but across the airwaves, so that we can make sure that the message of the cross is definitively standing out in the midst of all of the opinions and popular things that is being broadcast or spoken over the airwaves now. Postman feels that we should emphasize Huxley's perspective in trying to understand the plight of American culture. Society is going to be influenced by those who are spotlighted on television and, of course, by those who are popular, have the most likes on social media. People don't think for themselves anymore. They just go with what's trending. That is the other reason why it is so important to make sure that the voice of the believer is being heard, because someone's voice is going to be heard. And in order to understand American culture, we cannot put ourselves in a box and not be a part of the mainstream, not be a part of the way that the world is projecting its message, because our message is going to be lost if we do not embrace the medium that the world is using to make sure that they are promoting themselves. We will talk about the big retail giants, for example. our dollars, which are supposed to be used if we are kingdom and kingdom living, to make sure that the work of God is being promoted, that the work of God is being done in the earth realm. But the retailers are making sure that they are using television, that they are using social media, that they are using every outlet possible to take those dollars and the wealth that belongs to the kingdom and to transfer it to their pockets and to their generations to come. And we have got to be mindful of this thing. So J.P. Moreland has an insight with respect to the empty self. Christian philosopher Dr. J.P. Morgan claims that Christians are not experiencing spiritual maturity because they are victims of something that he calls the empty self syndrome. This lack of maturity leaves believers without the necessary tools to impact their culture for God's kingdom and to experience what the Bible calls the mind of Christ. According to Moreland, the purpose of life for believers is to honor God. This involves finding one's vocation and pursuing it for the good of both believers and non-believers, while in the process being changed into a more Christ-like person. Doing this well involves developing intellectual and moral virtues over long periods of time and delaying the constant desire for immediate gratification. Unfortunately, our culture teaches an entirely different set of values. It emphasizes a self-centered, consumption-oriented lifestyle, which works directly against possessing a mature Christian mind. It also places an unhealthy emphasis on living within the moment rather than committing to long-term projects of personal discipline and learning. So, what should the role of the church be in attempting to reverse the cultural realities lamented by Postman? First, the church has got to go back to being the organism that it was designed to be, a place of teaching, a place of learning, a place of healing, and a place of grace. One of the reasons why we are not able to reach this generation is because of the lack of grace. Church was not designed to be a place where somebody gets up in a pulpit and looks down on their noses at someone else who is in a struggle, but church was designed to be a place that the person that's in the pulpit that has been converted, as the scripture would say, when you've been converted, then I want you to strengthen your brother. The church is meant to be the place, as Jesus commanded, that you would come down out of the pulpit and walk out into the highways and hedges and compel men to come. But now church has turned into a fashion show. Church has turned into a place where people, I heard one preacher say, put their flesh on parade in order to be seen, when God said he is the one that is supposed to be lifted up. God never gave me a call. He never gave you a call. He never gave anybody else a call to lift their name up. But he said that he would, in the appropriate time, in the appropriate season, make your name great. And he would also choose the arena that your name would be made great in, which means your name may be made great in science, even though you preach the gospel. Your name may be made great in the schoolhouse, although you preach the gospel. Just because you've got a collar around your neck does not mean that God meant to make your name great in the pulpit. And there is a struggle. There is a fight that's going on in the pulpit, in the house of God. There is a fight against man to take God's glory. And until we decide to come back to the place that our lives is all about the glory of God, then we will not be able to impact the world, no matter if we use television and every social media outlet that is out there. We got to stop trying to get likes for ourselves and likes for the kingdom. And then when the church goes back to being the organism that it was designed to be, then the little churches, the you and I, the churches that's wrapped up in this flesh, we will be able to walk out into the community and be equipped to produce the same thing outside of the four walls. We'll be able to produce the same things when we walk into our neighborhoods that are drug infested. Why? Because we are going to walk in in with grace. We are going to walk in sharing the love of Christ. We are going to walk in sharing the mission of the cross, not downing a person if they don't receive at that moment, but knowing that if one plants, one water, then God eventually is going to give the increase. But the other problem with the church is that we're not watering, we're not planting because we are too busy trying to elevate ourselves. We must embrace the culture of Christ and not the culture of the world. But remember that worldliness is not what you wear. It's not what you drink. It's not necessarily where you hang out, but it's rather adopting a daily routine that leaves out the purpose of God, or at best puts him last on your agenda. So I will close by saying that I do believe that there is some truth to what Postman said as it relates to television being incapable, or social media being incapable of encouraging sustained reflection of matters of fundamental importance. But it's only if the church decides that it is going to put more emphasis on raising offerings so that people can have this lavish lifestyle, instead of making sure that the money and the dollars that we are putting back into television, advertising, and social media, that it is going back into our communities, and that we are producing capable members of society. We are producing people that are not distracted by things that have nothing to do with purpose, but that we are driving people to find out what their vocation is, what their purpose is in life. That if we get off of the what I'm going to call the spiritual high horse of thinking that people don't have a purpose if it's not standing in the pulpit, that people don't have a purpose if it's not holding a microphone, that the mindset of the church has got to stop being so narrow, and it's got to be broad-minded to understand that the gifts of God, they are many. The gifts of helps don't just stop at helping in the church, but the gifts of help is to help in the community. So until we fully embrace who God is, what his purpose is, it doesn't matter what medium we use or don't use. It won't be effective until the church becomes effective again. That is the end of my presentation.